I sit at the polished oak table, my wedding dress crisp against the rough wood of the converted barn outside Madison. The string lights overhead cast honeycomb patterns across 180 faces, some familiar, most from Vaughn's side. My champagne glass remains untouched while my father stands, tapping his knife against crystal with the precision of a metronome. To my middle daughter, Janessa, Gerald Price announces, his voice carrying the confident timbre of a man who spent 4 decades in corporate boardrooms, who always chose the easy road in life. My hand freezes mid-reach for my water glass. Easy road? The words land like a slap across my face. 4 years of agricultural science at Wisconsin State. 2 more getting certified in sustainable farming practices. And 3 backbreaking years, bringing 80 acres of neglected soil back to life. All while Savannah climbed the corporate ladder in her air-conditioned office. While some of us built businesses and careers, Dad continues, his silver hair catching the light. Janessa decided playing in the dirt was enough ambition for a price. He pauses for the appreciative chuckles that ripple through the closest tables. But we love her anyway. To the newlyweds. My sister Savannah leans across the table, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light as she whispers loud enough for our entire table to hear. The mud lovers finally made it official. The room spins slightly. Blood rushes to my face, and my chest tightens with that familiar pressure, the same sensation I felt at every family dinner when achievements were measured by salary figures and vacation destinations. My hands begin to shake, the tremors visible enough that I press them flat against the tablecloth. Beneath the table, Vaughn's warm fingers find mine. He squeezes once our private signal developed over 3 years of navigating my family's pointed comments and backhanded compliments. His touch anchors me as conversations resume around us. Your father means well. My mother Marilyn murmurs from my right, patting my arm with the automatic comfort she offers whenever Dad cuts too deep. He just wants what's best. What's best? The phrase has followed me since childhood, always paired with some variation of why I wasn't achieving it. I stare at the centerpiece wildflowers Vaughn and I grew ourselves, arranged in mason jars we sterilized last harvest season. To everyone else, they're just pretty decorations. To us, they represent the future growing across our acres, the experimental perennials that could revolutionize Midwestern farming if Vaughn's irrigation innovations work as projected. My thoughts drift back to when I was 8, standing in Savannah's shadow at the country club Christmas party. Why can't you be more like your sister? Dad had asked, straightening my collar while Savannah showed off her junior golf trophy. She knows how to make people proud. The pattern never broke. Savannah's acceptance to Northwestern Business School versus my state agriculture program. Her first downtown apartment against our farmhouse with its peeling paint. Her hedge fund manager husband Miles compared to my Vaughn with soil perpetually embedded under his fingernails, despite his nightly scrubbing. I look across the reception hall, mentally cataloging who's present. The neighbors from Savannah's lake community, laughing too loudly at Dad's jokes. Mom's bridge club, whispering about my simple wedding dress. Miles's investment colleagues, their wives wearing identical expressions of polite disinterest. None of them know about Vaughn's late nights analyzing soil composition, or the calls from the university extension office asking about our water conservation methods. They see muddy boots and calloused hands, not innovation or purpose. The memory surfaces unbidden the day I met Vaughn at the agricultural conference in Des Moines. Other attendees clustered around the technological displays with their blinking lights and touch screens. But Vaughn stood alone by a simple irrigation diagram, explaining to anyone who would listen how his modifications could reduce water usage by 38%. The answers are in the dirt, he told me later over coffee, his eyes alive with possibility. Everyone wants apps and drones, but the real revolution is happening right under our feet. When he spoke about his dream farm not as a quaint retreat, but as a living laboratory, I recognized something I'd been searching for my entire life. Freedom from the Price family measuring stick. Our farm isn't just acreage and crops, it's independence. Validation that success doesn't require corner offices or luxury cars. I straighten my spine and stand, champagne glass in hand. Conversations fade as heads turn toward the bride unexpectedly rising. I want to thank everyone for coming. I begin, my voice steadier than I feel, especially those who've supported us during the tough seasons, both in farming and in life. I look directly at Dad, whose expression shifts from comfortable authority to wary alertness. When times get tough, what matters is who actually stands beside you. The silence that follows stretches a beat too long. Dad's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, the same tension that appears when a business associate contradicts him. Savannah exchanges a glance with Miles, her perfectly arched eyebrows raised in surprise. To all of you who believed in what we're building, I continue, raising my glass higher. Thank you for seeing value where others saw only soil. Mom touches Dad's sleeve, a silent command to let it pass. His momentary shock fades behind a practiced smile, but the message has landed. For perhaps the first time, I've publicly rejected the family narrative that I settled for less. Here, calls a voice from the back, Bill Henderson from the neighboring farm, followed by agreeing murmurs from the handful of agricultural friends we invited. People Savannah dismissed as Janessa's country bumpkin crowd when reviewing the guest list. As I sit, Vaughn's arm slides around my waist, and he presses a kiss to my temple. "Proud of you," he whispers against my hair. The simple words fill a space inside me that my family's approval never could. Later, as we move between clusters of well-wishers, 3 farmers from the county co-op approach. Their wives carry small gift bags, homemade preserves, and seed packets, modest offerings compared to the expensive kitchen appliances from my family's friends. "That irrigation system you designed saved my north field during the drought." Frank Olson tells Vaughn, shaking his hand firmly, "Don't listen to the suits. What you two are doing matters." As they move away, Vaughn catches my eye across the dance floor where Savannah holds court with her friends, their laughter rising above the music. The contrast couldn't be clearer, her world of appearances and ours of substance. "They won't always talk to us this way," I tell Vaughn quietly as we join hands for our first dance. "Someday, they'll understand what we've been building all along." His smile contains a confidence I'm still learning to feel. "They will," he agrees, "but it won't matter by then, we'll have already won." I balance a paper plate of potato salad in one hand and a lukewarm beer in the other as I survey the gleaming expanse of my parents' lakefront deck. 3 years have passed since our wedding, but the familiar knot in my stomach returns whenever we attend these family gatherings. The late June sun beats down on the freshly stained cedar planks where Savannah holds court near the built-in grill, her laughter carrying across the yard. "Miles just closed another 8-figure investment portfolio," she announces to anyone within earshot, her manicured hand resting on her husband's shoulder. The partner meeting in New York went exactly as planned. Miles lifts his wrist, angling it so the afternoon light catches his watch. "Limited edition Patek Philippe. Only 50 made worldwide." He directs this specifically at Vaughn, whose reliable Timex has dirt embedded in the band despite his thorough morning scrubbing. "What's the latest in manure management these days?" Vaughn's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, but his voice remains steady. "Our nitrogen-fixing experiments are reducing fertilizer needs by 28%. The University Extension Office is tracking our results." My father approaches, drink in hand, ice cubes clinking against crystal. Unlike the paper cups the rest of us use, Dad insists on proper glassware even at casual gatherings. "Savannah just secured 3 new client accounts worth over $30 million. Meanwhile, you're still playing in the dirt." The words aren't new, variations have punctuated every holiday dinner, birthday celebration, and family gathering since we purchased the farm. "Christmas 2 years ago. That old farmhouse looks like it's one storm away from collapsing. Savannah just renovated their entire second floor. Thanksgiving last year. Those work clothes make you look like hired help, Janessa. Is that really the image you want to project as a price?" My mother materializes beside me, patting my arm. "Your father just wants what's best for you, dear. Maybe you could take some business courses at the community college. It's never too late to make something of yourself." "Make something of myself." As if the sustainable farming techniques we've pioneered count for nothing. As if Vaughn's irrigation system that reduced water consumption by nearly 40% is invisible. As if the soil samples currently being studied by 3 separate agricultural universities mean less than Miles's stock portfolio. The realization crystallizes with sudden clarity. This isn't casual dismissal. This is calculated, systematic, and orchestrated campaign to maintain the family hierarchy with Savannah permanently at the top. I scan the gathering with new eyes. My cousin Blake, nodding appreciatively at Miles's investment anecdotes, though I know he works as a middle school history teacher. Aunt Patricia, who once praised our heirloom tomatoes, but now pretends not to remember the basket we brought. Uncle Thomas, who asked detailed questions about crop rotation last Easter, but today acts as if we've never discussed agriculture. They're all part of it, the careful construction of a narrative where Savannah succeeds and I fail, regardless of reality. Across the deck, Vaughn engages with my father's golf buddy, patiently explaining something with his hands tracing patterns in the air. Despite his Stanford education and multiple published research papers, they speak to him as if explaining concepts to a child. The deliberate misunderstanding, the carefully maintained fiction that he's just some dirt farmer, strikes me as purposeful for the first time. My parents aren't just disappointed, they're invested in maintaining a false narrative. I watch Savannah maneuver through the crowd, strategically mentioning their Cape Cod vacation home within earshot of my mother, noting how Mom straightens with pride. When conversation turns to sustainable agriculture, Savannah smoothly redirects to Miles's recent yacht purchase. The pattern is so obvious now I can't believe I never saw it clearly before. A tap on my shoulder interrupts my thoughts. Celeste, my younger sister, stands behind me, her expression uncharacteristically serious. At almost 28, she's usually the family mediator, carefully neutral in the ongoing Cold War between Savannah and me. I need to tell you something, she whispers, glancing toward the house. Inside, now. In the cool silence of the kitchen, Celeste pulls the sliding door closed behind us. Miles has made some catastrophic investment mistakes, she says without preamble, voice barely audible. I overheard him arguing with Savannah last night. As senior financial advisor, he's personally responsible for several major losses. I set my plate down, suddenly not hungry. How bad? Bad enough that they've listed the Cape Cod house with a realtor. The yacht has been quietly put up for sale too. Celeste glances toward the deck where laughter erupts. Savannah's terrified. Her perfect life is imploding. What about mom and dad? The question forms before I fully process its implications. Celeste's expression confirms my fear. Miles manages their retirement portfolio, has for years. Dad gave him complete control after his heart scare. The pieces lock into place with terrible clarity. The family hierarchy requires Savannah's success and my failure. If Savannah fails, the entire structure collapses, including our parents' financial security. She's desperate, Janessa, which makes her dangerous. Celeste squeezes my arm, just watch yourself, they'll be looking for solutions anywhere they can find them. When Celeste slides the door open, conversation washes back over us like a wave. I return to the deck, seeing everything through this new lens, the desperate edge to Savannah's laughter. The tight lines around Miles' eyes when Dad mentions their upcoming Mediterranean cruise. The way Mom keeps touching her pearls, a nervous habit from childhood. Later that night, after the long drive home, Vaughn and I sit at our kitchen table. The old wood bears the marks of countless meals and late-night conversations, its surface worn smooth by our hands. You saw it too, he says, not a question but a confirmation. I nod, tracing a groove in the table. They've always been dismissive, but it's more than that. It's strategic. They need to see us fail to maintain their world. Devon. Vaughn's fingers find mine, warm and solid. What do you think they'll do now that their perfect world is cracking? My phone buzzes with a text from Celeste. I'll keep you informed about any family financial discussions. They don't pay attention to me. I show Vaughn the message. We stay dignified but vigilant. No rushing in to rescue or confront. Agreed. His calm confidence suggests resources beyond what my family realizes. We've built something real here, Janessa. Something that matters. Outside our kitchen window, moonlight bathes the experimental fields where tomorrow's crops grow in carefully monitored conditions. What my family dismisses as worthless dirt may be the only solid ground any of us have left. I balance a plate of deviled eggs in one hand and a glass of lemonade in the other as I navigate through Celeste's birthday gathering a month later. The celebration feels different this year, more restrained, with fewer imported cheeses on the charcuterie board and only domestic champagne chilling in the ice bucket. The Price family tradition of extravagant parties hasn't disappeared entirely, but the edges have frayed. Dad still wears his Brooks Brothers blazer, but it's last season's model. Mom's tennis bracelet catches the light, but her manicure shows signs of at-home application rather than her usual salon perfection. Did you hear about the Cape House? Did you hear about the Cape House? The whispered question floats from behind the kitchen door as I pass, Miles' voice pitched low but carrying an unmistakable edge of panic. I slow my steps, balancing the deviled eggs with practiced steadiness. Shouldn't have put it on the market so fast, Gerald responds. Buyers smell desperation. We didn't have a choice. The credit card payments alone. Keep your voice down. The voices fade as a waiter emerges from the kitchen, forcing me to move along. I settle at a table near the garden where Vaughn stands examining Mom's prized hydrangeas, his farmer's eyes automatically assessing soil quality and water needs, even at a social gathering. Dad approaches our table but pivots abruptly when someone mentions the yacht club membership. A flash of something I've never seen crosses his face discomfort. Gerald Price, who spent 40 years controlling boardroom conversations, is avoiding money talk. My mother glances nervously towards Savannah when someone asks about their annual Martha's Vineyard trip. We're exploring other options this year, she says with practiced brightness that doesn't reach her eyes. For 8 years, I've watched my sister parade her financial success at family gatherings. Today, she's wearing the same dress she wore to Christmas dinner. Twice, I catch her checking price tags when she thinks no one is watching. The golden crown is slipping. As Celeste blows out her candles, I study my youngest sister. At 28, she's always lived in Savannah's shadow, expected to follow the prescribed Price family path of corporate achievement. Now her eyes meet mine across the flickering flames, and I recognize a fellow outsider. I say nothing about our farm's spring harvest exceeding projections, nothing about the university's interest in Vaughn's irrigation research. Let them assume we struggle. Some advantages are best kept hidden until needed. Janessa. Savannah's voice cuts through my thoughts as she corners me in the kitchen. The family gathering has thinned, with only close relatives remaining. I need to talk to you. She closes the kitchen door behind us. Gone is the polished finance executive's wife. In her place stands a woman with concealer that doesn't quite hide the circles under her eyes. How's everything at the mud patch? She asks, her attempt at casual condescension falling flat. Productive, I answer, rinsing a plate in the sink. The experimental crop rotation is showing promise. That's nice. She dismisses years of research with 2 words. Listen. Miles and I are repositioning some investments, and we're temporarily light on liquid assets. I turn off the water, drying my hands slowly. Repositioning? Her smile tightens. Just until the market rebounds. We were wondering if you and Vaughn might consider a short-term loan. $20,000 would bridge things nicely. The request hangs between us like a physical object. 3 years ago, at my wedding reception, this woman called us mud lovers. Now she wants our mud money. What about the Cape Cod place? I ask, knowing the answer. Color floods her cheeks. We've had to list it. The mortgage payments. She stops, recalibrates. We've been carrying them on credit while some investments mature. I lean against the counter. We're investing everything back into our business right now. Business? Her laugh comes quick and sharp. It's a farm, Janessa, not a hedge fund. This is family. Yes, I agree. Family. The same family that spent years telling me I made the wrong choices. Oh, please. You're enjoying this, aren't you? The mask slips entirely. Little Janessa finally has something Savannah needs. The kitchen suddenly feels too small for both of us and the ghosts of every dismissive comment she's ever made. Something shifts between us. A tectonic realignment of power. For the first time, Savannah Price Miller is looking up at me rather than down. I'm not enjoying anything. I say, my voice level. I'm protecting what Vaughn and I have built. The same way you've always protected what matters to you. She blinks rapidly, mascara slightly smudged at the corner of one eye. Miles will turn things around. He always does. I hope so, I reply, and mean it. Despite everything, the idea of Savannah truly broken holds no appeal. But our capital is committed to our research projects. Research? She almost spits the word. Playing with dirt and calling it science? The old comment no longer stings. Exactly, I say, offering nothing more. She leaves the kitchen with shoulders squared but balance lost, the confident stride replaced by something stiffer, more deliberate. The performance of Savannah is cracking under pressure. The kitchen door swings open again. Vaughn enters with Celeste close behind, both wearing expressions that tell me they heard everything. Let's get some air. Celeste suggests, leading us through the butler's pantry to the side patio where privacy awaits behind a trellis of clematis. Under the gathering dusk, Celeste's face shows both concern and relief. It's worse than they're letting on, she says, sinking onto a wrought iron chair. Miles lost 3 major clients last month. People are asking questions about his investment strategies. Questioning Miles is practically blasphemy in this family, I observe, watching a pair of goldfinches squabble at the feeder. The firm put him on a performance improvement plan, Celeste continues. Dad doesn't know yet. If he finds out his golden son-in-law is failing, the whole family mythology collapses. Vaughn remains standing, hands in pockets, his silence speaking volumes. Finally, he says, we won't gloat but we won't be their bailout either. The simple declaration cements what I already knew: we're united in this boundary. 10 years of Gerald Price dismissing Vaughn's intelligence, Savannah mocking his calloused hands. My mother patting his arm with patronizing affection while ignoring his Stanford education, all meet this moment of quiet strength. I'm with you both, Celeste says, reaching for my hand. They never saw what you were building because they didn't want to look. 3 siblings raised in the same house, yet our paths diverged. The moment feels significant, Celeste openly choosing my side over Savannah's, breaking the family hierarchy that served as our childhood foundation. As darkness settles over the garden, a question forms in my mind but remains unspoken. If 20,000 was the opening ask, how desperate might they become when that fails? And what lengths might they go to when they realize we have more than they suspect? We should get home, Vaughn says, squeezing my shoulder gently. Early start tomorrow. As we leave, I catch a glimpse of my father and Miles in heated discussion by the garage. Miles's hands wave in frantic explanation while Dad's face hardens into granite displeasure. The Price family foundation is cracking, fault lines spreading from what they dismissed as merely mud. 3 weeks after Savannah's desperate kitchen plea, Vaughn and I sit at our oak dining table, now repurposed as a makeshift accounting desk. Spreadsheets carpet the surface like fallen autumn leaves, each page revealing another facet of our operation. Our liquid assets stand at 58,000. Vaughn says, tapping his pencil against the notepad where he's been calculating figures for the past hour. Not exactly a fortune, but enough to handle unexpected expenses through harvest. I nod, studying the projection graphs for his experimental drought-resistant wheat. The preliminary yield data suggests a 32% improvement over standard varieties, but we need another growing season to validate the results. What about the irrigation patent application? Any movement there? I ask, deliberately keeping my tone neutral. After the confrontation with Savannah, we've agreed to approach this situation with clinical precision rather than emotional reaction. Patent Office requested more documentation on the sensor arrays. Vaughn slides over a folder containing our intellectual property filings. I sent everything yesterday. Patent attorney thinks we'll hear back within 8 weeks. The weight of what we're doing settles on my shoulders. We're cataloging our entire life, assigning dollar values to years of sweat and research, preparing as if for invasion. Do you think they'll actually come after the farm? I ask. Vaughn looks up, his blue eyes steady. Your father didn't build his business by leaving money on the table. If they're truly desperate, an 80-acre property might look like an easy solution. A car engine rumbles outside. Vaughn moves to the window, then relaxes, just Frank dropping off those irrigation parts. I turn back to our financial assessment, checking account balances against outstanding invoices. The numbers tell a story of careful growth and strategic reinvestment. Everything channeled back into research that my family dismisses as playing in dirt. Celeste called while you were in the shower, Vaughn says, returning to his chair. Miles has started liquidating their investment portfolio, taking significant losses just to generate cash. How bad? Bad enough that your father has started canceling club memberships. Marilyn put her annual charity gala on hold due to scheduling conflicts. I almost laugh at the transparent excuse. Mother's spring gala has been sacrosanct for 23 years. She once hosted it with pneumonia rather than disappoint the county elite. Celeste also mentioned your father asked about our mortgage situation, wanted to know if we owned the property outright or were still making payments. My stomach tightens. That's not casual conversation. No, Vaughn agrees, shuffling papers into organized stacks. It's reconnaissance. We work methodically through the afternoon, documenting every aspect of our operation. Vaughn contacts the agricultural attorney who structured our business, confirming our protection against external claims. I reach out to our network of local farmers, strengthening alliances that have sustained us through drought and early frost. By sunset, we've compiled a comprehensive dossier on our farm's true value, not just as property, but as a research facility developing technologies that could transform Midwestern agriculture. We tuck the files into a fireproof safe in Vaughn's office, our insurance against whatever comes next. My phone buzzes as we finish dinner. Dad's name lights up the screen. Janessa? He begins without greeting, his businessman's voice firmly in place. Your mother and I would like to have everyone over for dinner this weekend. We have some opportunities we'd like to discuss with the whole family. The formality in his tone sends warning signals flashing across my consciousness. This isn't a casual family gathering. What kind of opportunities? I ask, keeping my voice even while my heart accelerates. Just some options we're exploring. Nothing specific yet. The practiced casualness sounds rehearsed. Saturday at 7. Bring that husband of yours. The call ends before I can respond. Vaughn watches me set the phone down, reading my expression with the practiced ease of someone who has navigated my family dynamics alongside me for years. They want us for dinner Saturday. Dad mentioned opportunities they want to discuss. Vaughn raises an eyebrow. That's faster than I expected. Should we just help them and end this? The question slips out before I can stop it, the product of 32 years of conditioned response to family expectations. Vaughn takes my hand, his callous thumb tracing my knuckles. Remember Thanksgiving 3 years ago, when your father called our research a waste of good farmland? Or your birthday last year, when Savannah asked if we qualified for food stamps yet? The memories flood back, each one a small cut that never fully healed. They've had countless opportunities to respect what we're building. Vaughn continues. They chose mockery instead. Now they need something, and suddenly we're worth a dinner invitation. The anger I've suppressed for weeks flares hot in my chest. Not the uncontrolled rage of a temper tantrum, but the focused heat of a blowtorch, precise and powerful. Saturday should be interesting, I say, reaching for my phone to accept the invitation. 2 days later, the evening sun casts long shadows across our kitchen as Vaughn spreads documents across the worn oak table. His fingers, still carrying traces of soil despite scrubbing, tap methodically against a leather portfolio I've never seen before. There's something I need to show you, he says, his voice steady but eyes watchful, something I should have shared earlier. My stomach tightens. After Celeste's warnings about family interference, more surprises feel dangerous. What is it? He pulls out university letterhead, first Stanford, not Wisconsin State. My doctorate wasn't in basic irrigation. It was advanced algorithmic modeling for climate-adaptive agriculture. The room seems to tilt slightly. Stanford? But you said, I wanted to be valued for what I do, not credentials. He meets my eyes directly. That first conference in Des Moines? I'd already filed 3 patents on precision soil monitoring systems. My mind races back to our first meeting, recalculating every interaction. The man I married brilliant but humble suddenly revealed as something more. The farm isn't just a farm, Janessa. He slides forward a bound report with Greenfield Agritech emblazoned across its cover. It's the R&D hub for my company. Current valuation, $62 million. The number hits like a physical blow. 62 million? 9 investors. 3 university partnerships. Everything structured through separate LLCs to protect the intellectual property. His hands move purposefully through the papers. What your family dismisses as playing in dirt is cutting-edge research that's already revolutionizing drought management across 3 continents. Heat flushes through my chest and into my face. Why keep this from me? I didn't. Not really. His voice softens. The patents are displayed in the office. The research data lives on our servers. I talked about the investors last Christmas. Memories flash Savannah, interrupting Vaughn's conversation about funding partners to show off her new diamond earrings, Dad steering discussion toward her husband's brokerage achievements. They'd never bothered to listen. Your family made assumptions, Vaughn continues. I stopped correcting them when I realized they weren't interested in the truth. My phone vibrates against the table, Celeste's name lighting up the screen. The message preview chills me despite the warm kitchen. Emergency. Call now. 30 seconds later, her voice pours through the speaker, words tumbling over each other. Miles lost everything, Nessa. Not just their money. Everything. Dad and Mom's retirement accounts. $3.1 million across 22 client portfolios. The room feels suddenly airless. What? They're coming for your farm. The fear in her voice is palpable. Miles has a buyer already lined up, some developer who wants the acreage for a subdivision. They're planning to pressure you into selling tomorrow. Forget about the dinner on Saturday. Vaughn's face remains impassive, but I see his knuckles whiten against the table edge. Miles keeps saying it's worth $1 million at most. Celeste continues. They're bringing paperwork for immediate signatures. Dad's talking about knocking sense into you both. After disconnecting, silence fills our kitchen. The magnitude of tomorrow's confrontation settles between us like a physical presence. They think we're desperate enough to grab any lifeline. Vaughn says, finally, gathering the documents. They've always seen you as the weak link, easily manipulated by family obligation. The familiar burning starts behind my eyes, but it's not sadness anymore, it's rage. For every dismissive comment at family gatherings, for the patronizing smiles when we mentioned crop innovations, for the lifetime of being valued less. What's our strategy? I ask, throat tight. As darkness falls, we sit at the kitchen table, rehearsing responses to expected tactics. No emotional outbursts. No defensive justifications. Simple, firm refusal. Let them come, Vaughn says quietly as we finally stand. They're bringing knives to a gunfight they don't even know exists. We step onto the porch, looking across our land. Moonlight silvers the experimental field's drought-resistant wheat variants on the west acre. Soil, regenerating legumes to the north, automated irrigation channels cutting precise lines through the darkness. This land isn't dirt, it's the future. And tomorrow, my family will finally understand exactly what they've been dismissing all these years. The next day, the tires of 3 vehicles crunch against our gravel driveway just after 9. Through the kitchen window, I watch Savannah emerge from a sleek black Mercedes, her cream-colored pantsuit immaculate despite the dust swirling around the cars. Miles follows in his typical Wall Street uniform, charcoal suit, power tie, leather briefcase that probably costs more than our monthly grocery budget. Company's here early? Vaughn says, drying his hands on a dish towel. After Celeste's warning call last night, we'd spent hours preparing documents, reviewing financials, and practicing our responses. What we hadn't expected was the additional 3 people exiting a Lexus SUV, a balding man clutching a leather portfolio, a woman in a pinstripe skirt suit, and another man furiously typing on his phone. I recognized the tactic immediately. When Dad wanted to close a reluctant client, he'd bring unexpected reinforcements, create the impression of inevitability. The knot in my stomach tightens as I count the players. 5. Against 2. Look at this place. Savannah announces as soon as I open the door, her voice carrying the forced cheerfulness she reserves for situations she's determined to control. So, rustic. Perfect day for a visit, right? Before I can answer, Miles steps forward, hand extended toward Vaughn. Hope you don't mind the surprise drop-in. We were showing Peter some properties in the area and thought, why not include the farm? Peter, the balding man, nods professionally while scanning our living room with the calculated assessment of someone mentally assigning dollar values to everything he sees. Peter Donovan, Heartland Investment Group. He says, not bothering to wait for introductions. Beautiful property you have. Excellent road access. Perfect elevation. The woman steps forward. Marjorie Winters, real estate broker. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Just here to answer any questions. The third man finally pockets his phone. Jim Barker, financial aid to Mr. Donovan. My throat constricts as I watch this carefully orchestrated play unfold in our living room. Vaughn catches my eye, his expression neutral but alert like a chess player recognizing a familiar opening gambit. We weren't expecting company, I say, the words feeling inadequate against the invasion. Especially not a broker and investment team. Savannah laughs, the sound brittle. Oh, don't be so suspicious. Peter was looking at properties. We mentioned your place, and he got interested. She perches on our sofa without invitation. Isn't that wonderful? Miles spreads documents across our coffee table with practiced efficiency. Here's the thing, Peter's been looking for agricultural land for a managed investment fund. When we described your situation, he saw the potential immediately. Our situation, Vaughn asks, his voice deliberately measured. A young couple sitting on valuable acreage without the capital to maximize its potential, Peter explains, as though discussing an obvious business truth. We're prepared to make this incredibly simple. Miles taps a document. Cash buyer, ready to close fast. We've drafted a purchase agreement with a 15-day due diligence window practically unheard of in this market. We can have signatures tonight, full payment within days, Peter adds, leaning forward. No complications, no contingencies. The audacity stuns me, momentarily speechless. They've arrived unannounced with paperwork already prepared, as though our agreement is a foregone conclusion. My palms begin to sweat, and I press them against my jeans. We're trying to help you too, Savannah says, her voice softening to the tone she uses when she wants something. Miles has arranged positions for both of you at his firm, junior analysts to start, but with room for growth. She reaches for my hand, which I pull away. Real careers, Janessa. Office with a view, company benefits, actual retirement plans. It's just dirt, Janessa, Miles says, gesturing vaguely toward our kitchen window, where our experimental fields stretch toward the horizon. This is $1 million we're talking about. $1 million for dirt. The words land like a physical blow. Just dirt. 3 years of soil analysis, irrigation innovations, and selective breeding reduced to just dirt. I open my mouth to object when our front door opens again, and my parents enter without knocking. Traffic was terrible coming from the lake, Dad announces, as though continuing a conversation already in progress. Mom follows, clutching her purse with white knuckles, eyes darting between Miles and Savannah. The reinforcements have arrived, a united family front, 1.1 million, Peter suddenly announces, raising his voice over the commotion of my parents' arrival. I'm authorized to go that high today only. Cash, immediate closing. Mom gasps. Over $1 million? For this? She looks around our modest farmhouse with fresh disbelief. Dad clasps his hands together. Now we're talking sense. Where do they sign? The air grows thick with expectation as every pair of eyes turns toward us. The pressure feels like a physical weight pressing against my chest. This is the moment they've been orchestrating, overwhelming us with bodies, voices, and expectations, until resistance seems futile. Vaughn steps forward, hands relaxed at his sides. When he speaks, his voice carries none of the anger churning inside me, only calm professionalism that seems to bring the room to a standstill. Thank you for your interest, Mr. Donovan, but we're not selling our property. Peter blinks, momentarily derailed. Perhaps you don't understand. This offer exceeds market value by nearly 40%. Vaughn nods. I understand perfectly. We're currently conducting longitudinal studies on drought-resistant perennial grain crops with modified root structures. Our 3-year soil composition research has just begun to yield preliminary results that suggest significant advancements in water retention techniques. The room falls silent. I watch their faces register confusion as Vaughn speaks with the authoritative cadence of an expert rather than the grateful recipient of their generous rescue. You're turning down $1.1 million for farmland? Peter asks, genuine confusion replacing his salesman's confidence. This is a research facility, not just a traditional farm. I say, moving to stand beside Vaughn, while we appreciate your interest, we're not in the market to sell. Savannah's perfect composure cracks. Research facility? It's a farm, with dirt and plants and tractors. Yes, Vaughn agrees pleasantly, agricultural research requires all those things. Dad pushes forward. Now listen here, your sister and Miles have gone to considerable trouble to arrange this opportunity. The very least you can do is sit down and discuss it properly. We have discussed it, I reply, the anger I've suppressed for years giving my voice unexpected strength. The answer is no. Miles attempts one final approach, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial tone. We can make this even easier. I have an escrow officer on standby to handle the paperwork today. You could have a cashier's check by Friday. Vaughn steps toward the door and opens it wide. I believe we've been clear about our position. Thank you for stopping by. The stunned silence that follows feels like a physical entity in our living room. One by one, the visitors gather their papers and move toward the door. Peter Donovan offers a business card that neither of us accepts. Marjorie and Jim follow without a word, their purpose rendered obsolete by our refusal. My parents linger, Dad's face flushing with a dangerous shade of red. You're making a tremendous mistake, he warns. That's our decision to make, I answer, holding the door wider. When the door finally closes behind them, the silence feels like oxygen rushing back into the room. Through the window, I watch them congregate on our front porch, gesturing animatedly. Savannah's voice rises first, words indistinct but tone unmistakable as she screams that I'm selfish and cruel. Dad's deeper voice joins the chorus, pointing repeatedly at our house. That went well, Vaughn says quietly, his hand finding mine. My phone buzzes with Mom's name on the screen. When I answer, her voice trembles with a fury I've rarely heard. You're ungrateful, I'm ashamed to have a daughter like you. Before I can respond, Dad's voice comes on the line. We'll be back with help. You clearly aren't thinking straight. The call ends abruptly. Outside, car doors slam and engines roar to life, spraying gravel as they accelerate down our driveway. An hour later, my phone buzzes again. Celeste, this time. They're planning an intervention, she says without preamble. Dad's calling Pastor Williams, and Mom's reaching out to all the neighbors. They're saying you've joined some kind of agricultural cult and need rescuing. I put the phone on speaker so Vaughn can hear. When? 3 days. They're gathering everyone they can. Miles is even calling your college professors, claiming concern about your mental health. Her voice drops. This is worse than I expected. They're truly desperate. After we hang up, Vaughn and I stand at the window watching dust settle on our driveway. The final line has been crossed. The confrontation we've prepared for is now inevitable. I'll get the research documentation and company valuation reports. Vaughn says, heading toward his office. Time to show them exactly what they've been dismissing all these years. I nod, my anger crystallizing into something harder and more focused. Let them come. 3 days pass like a storm brewing over our farm. Each text from Celeste brings darker news. Dad's calling everyone we know. Then Mom's telling people you've had a breakdown. And finally, they're bringing Pastor Thompson, meeting at noon. I stand at our kitchen window, watching the convoy of vehicles roll up our gravel drive. My father's Lincoln Navigator leading the parade, followed by Savannah's Range Rover, Miles's BMW, and a disturbing number of cars from neighbors and church members. The pastor's white Cadillac stands out among them, as does Dr. Wainwright's sedan with its licensed family counselor bumper sticker. They brought an audience. Vaughn says quietly behind me, his hand resting on my shoulder, exactly as Celeste warned. Through the glass, I watch my mother smooth her cashmere sweater, Savannah dab at imaginary tears, and Miles check his reflection in his car window. My father directs people like a theater production, neighbors to the left, church members to the right, creating a semicircle that blocks our driveway completely. Ready? Vaughn asks, his voice steady but soft. I nod, fingers touching the folder of documents in my hand, as I'll ever be. The front yard has transformed into a makeshift intervention site. 20-some people stand awkwardly in the autumn sunshine, most wearing expressions of concern that make my stomach clench. Mrs. Henderson from down the road, who brought us homemade jam when we first moved in. The Wilsons, who helped rebuild our fence after last spring's windstorm. Faces I trusted now assembled against us. Janessa. My father begins, stepping forward with the authoritative stance honed in 4 decades of corporate boardrooms. He wears the navy blazer reserved for closing big deals. We've gathered here today because we love you and we're deeply concerned. The manufactured sincerity in his voice makes my jaw tighten. Your behavior has become increasingly erratic. He continues, projecting his voice to reach the assembled crowd. Turning down $1 million offer for this property shows a concerning detachment from reality. We're here to help, my mother adds, stepping forward to stand beside him. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By destroying family relationships out of stubbornness? Savannah moves next, tears magically appearing on cue. This isn't just about money, she says, voice quavering perfectly. It's about you deliberately hurting our family. We've always supported your unusual choices, she gestures dismissively at our home, the fields beyond. But this spite, this deliberate desire to watch us struggle while you sit on valuable property, it's destroying Mom and Dad. I feel my breath coming faster, hands curling into fists at my sides. The audacity of their performance staggers me. Pastor Thompson steps forward, Bible in hand. Janessa, the fifth commandment instructs us to honor our father and mother. In times of family crisis, we must put aside selfish concerns. Several neighbors nod along, thoroughly convinced by this orchestrated spectacle. Miles, ever the financial mind, approaches with a folder similar to mine. We've prepared some figures showing how this sale would benefit everyone, he explains in his most reasonable voice. Your parents would have financial security in their retirement. Savannah and I could resolve some temporary cash flow issues. And you and Vaughn would have a substantial nest egg to start over somewhere more unsuitable. Dr. Wainwright clears her throat. Sometimes our attachment to physical locations can become unhealthy coping mechanisms. A fresh start might help you establish more balanced family relationships. The strategic layering of their attack is almost impressive: religious obligation, psychological concern, financial practicality, all deployed before an audience chosen specifically to maximize social pressure. I open my mouth to respond, but Vaughn steps forward first, his hand briefly squeezing mine in passing. The gesture centers me instantly. Thank you all for coming. Vaughn begins, his voice carrying the composed authority I've heard only in his discussions with agricultural engineers. Your concern for Janessa and our well-being is appreciated, though I believe there's been some misunderstanding about our situation. He turns slightly, addressing the neighbors directly rather than my family. Pastor Thompson, Dr. Wainwright, I apologize that you've been brought here under false pretenses. My father's confident smile falters. Vaughn, this isn't productive. We're trying to. One moment, Gerald. Vaughn interrupts, polite but firm. He reaches for his tablet and walks toward the assembled group. I believe everyone here deserves the complete picture before offering judgment. He activates the screen, turning it toward the crowd. This is my doctoral degree in agricultural engineering from Stanford University. Next to it are the patents I hold on precision irrigation systems currently used in 4 countries. A murmur ripples through the onlookers. Pastor Thompson leans forward, adjusting his glasses. This farm isn't merely land growing conventional crops, Vaughn continues, swiping to new documents. It's the research headquarters of Greenfield Agritech, currently valued at $62 million, according to our last funding round. Mrs. Wilson audibly gasps. And this, he says, revealing the final document, is the approval letter for a federal research grant of $3.5 million to develop drought-resistant crop varieties that could revolutionize farming in drought-affected regions. The silence that follows hangs heavy as morning dew. Dr. Wainwright steps back, color rising in her face. I was told this was about a young couple refusing to help family during financial hardship. So was I, Pastor Thompson adds, turning toward my father with narrowed eyes. My father recovers quickly, stepping forward with a dismissive wave. Anyone can make up impressive-sounding numbers. The point remains that family obligations, the numbers aren't made up, Mr. Price. Mrs. Henderson interjects, stepping forward. My son works for the Department of Agriculture. He mentioned a major research grant going to a farm in our county. I had no idea it was Vaughn and Janessa's place. Gerald, Pastor Thompson says quietly, did you know about this when you asked me to speak with your daughter about family duty? My father's jaw works silently, eyes darting between faces no longer aligned with his narrative. Savannah attempts recovery, her voice higher than usual. This doesn't change the fact that our family is facing real financial difficulties. If anything, it means Janessa and Vaughn are even more capable of helping. Conside, January. It's time. I step forward, feeling a strange calm settle over me. For 32 years, I begin. I've listened to you dismiss my choices, belittle my dreams, and measure my worth against Savannah's corporate achievements. At my wedding, Dad, you told everyone I always chose the easy road in life. You called my agricultural science degree playing in dirt. My voice grows stronger with each word, years of silent, hurt-finding release. This farm isn't just land, it's innovation that could help thousands of farmers survive climate change. It's research that matters, and it's ours built without a dollar of family support or a word of encouragement from any of you. The neighbors shift uncomfortably, many unable to meet my eyes as the truth of my family's treatment becomes clear. Miles steps forward, his sales persona instantly adjusting to the circumstances. Janessa, Vaughn, I had no idea about the scope of your operation. Perhaps we could discuss some mutually beneficial investment opportunities? My clients would be very interested in. No, Miles, I interrupt, finding words I never imagined saying. Keep your dignity. Know your limits. The finality in my voice silences him completely. Pastor Thompson clears his throat. I believe I've misunderstood the situation entirely. Gerald, Marilyn, I think it would be best if everyone departed and gave Janessa and Vaughn some peace. But we haven't resolved anything. My mother protests, looking desperately around at the dissolving support. I believe we have, Doctor. Wainwright says firmly. And I'll be sending you my standard consultation fee, Gerald. This was highly inappropriate. One by one, neighbors approach to offer awkward apologies. Mrs. Henderson squeezes my hand, whispering, "I should have known better. I'm so sorry. Mr. Wilson tells Vaughn. You should have said something, son. We'd have stood with you from the start." My family stands stranded in our front yard, their audience evaporating as neighbors return to vehicles and drive away with backward glances. Celeste emerges from her car, where she had been waiting, watching. She walks directly to stand beside me and Vaughn, a clear declaration of allegiance. "You should go," she tells our parents quietly. "There's nothing more to accomplish here." "Celeste," my mother gasps. "You too?" "Me too," she confirms with quiet certainty. We watch as they retreat to their vehicles, defeated and exposed. My father's shoulders have lost their commanding posture. Savannah can't meet anyone's eyes. Miles looks shell-shocked by the reversal of fortune. My mother pauses at her car door, looking back once with an expression I can't quite read before sliding into the passenger seat. As the last vehicle disappears down our driveway, Vaughn's arm slides around my waist. Celeste stands on my other side, her hand finding mine. "It's really over, isn't it?" I ask, watching dust settle on the empty drive. "This part is," Vaughn answers, kissing my temple. "What comes next is entirely up to us." For the first time since my wedding day, I feel the weight of their expectations fall away completely. The farm stretches before us, bathed in autumn sunlight, not dirt but possibility, not mud but gold. The morning after our victory, I stand on the porch steps, watching an unfamiliar government vehicle roll up our gravel driveway. Dew still clings to the experimental wheat field beyond the barn, catching sunlight like scattered diamonds. My hands steady now, not trembling like at the wedding reception or during yesterday's confrontation, grip a coffee mug emblazoned with the University of Wisconsin Agricultural Extension logo. A woman emerges from the car, briefcase in hand, moving with purposeful strides that speak of efficiency and authority. Dark slacks and a forest green blazer suggest government rather than corporate, and I feel Vaughn step beside me before I hear him. "That's Linda Morales," he says quietly, USDA Research Division, our grant coordinator. The woman extends her hand as she reaches the steps. "Mrs. Price? Mr. Price?" "Linda Morales, Department of Agriculture. Forgive the early visit, but Washington wants this finalized immediately." In the kitchen, Linda opens her briefcase and slides a thick folder across our worn oak table. The same table where Vaughn and I sketched irrigation modifications on graph paper 3 years ago, when this was just a neglected property with potential. "Congratulations," Linda says, her professional demeanor warming. "The drought-resistant grain project has been approved for full funding, $3.5 million over 4 years, with priority designation as critical agricultural infrastructure." The words hang in the air between us. I reach for Vaughn's hand under the table, our old signal, but reversed now, not for support through criticism, but to anchor myself in a moment of triumph. "That's substantial," Vaughn says, his voice measured despite the magnitude of the news. Linda nods. "Your preliminary yields were unprecedented, 38% less water consumption with only a 4% reduction in harvest volume? The department considers this essential research during ongoing climate shifts." She taps the folder. "There's also interest from 3 agricultural journals requesting interviews about your methods." I think of my father's wedding toast, "Easy Road," playing in dirt, the condescension in his voice when he spoke of ambition. Now, federal recognition of what we've built sits on our kitchen table beside yesterday's breakfast crumbs. As Linda walks us through the paperwork, a vehicle turns into our driveway, then another. By mid-morning, a steady stream of neighbors arrives bearing covered dishes and congratulations. News travels fast in rural communities, especially news involving public humiliation of outsiders who misjudged locals. Frank Olson, whose Northfield borders ours, brings his famous apple pie. "Heard about the grant from my cousin at the extension office," he says, placing it on our increasingly crowded counter. "About time somebody recognized what you two are doing here." His wife Meredith adds casserole dishes to the collection. "And that business yesterday with your family, disgraceful, trying to pressure you that way. Everybody's talking about it." By afternoon, our farmhouse has become an impromptu celebration. Celeste arrives last, standing awkwardly in the doorway with a small suitcase, looking nothing like the confident junior partner at her Milwaukee law firm. "I quit," she announces when I meet her on porch. "Savannah called this morning, screaming about family loyalty, said I was expected to choose sides." She gestures toward her car. "Les choses." That evening, after the neighbors leave and Linda returns to her hotel, the 3 of us sit on the porch watching fireflies rise from the experimental fields. Celeste cradles a glass of whiskey, looking both lost and found. "The guest house needs work," Vaughn says, breaking the comfortable silence. But it has good bones, room for an office if you wanted to practice agricultural law. Celeste turns to him, startled. You'd let me stay? Family supports family, I say simply. Real family. The words hang between us like a bridge being built, plank by plank. 6 months later, I lead a tour of officials through our expanded facility. 3 new greenhouses gleam in the winter sun, their climate controls maintaining perfect growing conditions for our experimental seedlings. Graduate students from the university's Agricultural Sciences department follow me attentively, notebooks open. The modified irrigation systems reduce water consumption while maintaining root development. I explain, my voice clear and confident, so different from the woman who once shrank under her father's gaze at family gatherings. The soil composition analysis happens in real time through sensors, adjusting nutrient delivery automatically. Vaughn works with another group in the monitoring station, his quiet expertise now recognized by agricultural authorities across 3 states. The Rural Development Award hangs beside his Stanford diploma in our newly constructed administrative building. Through the glass wall, I spot Celeste in the conference room, deep in conversation with representatives from a sustainable farming coalition. Her legal expertise has proven invaluable in navigating patent applications and partnership agreements with the university. The transformation in her is as profound as my own, from the nervous youngest sister seeking parental approval to a respected advisor building her own practice around agricultural innovation. The preliminary yields are exceeding projections by 42%. I tell the fascinated students, remembering how Savannah once mocked our dirt obsession, which means smaller farms can implement these methods with minimal financial risk. Later that afternoon, I meet with 5 young women from the university's agricultural mentorship program. Their eager questions remind me of myself a decade ago, before family expectations nearly smothered my passion for the land. From the doorway, Vaughn watches with quiet pride as I guide these future scientists through complex concepts. His eyes catch mine across the room, holding a warmth that needs no words. This is what partnership looks like, not the performative success my parents valued, but genuine achievement built on mutual respect. As twilight settles over the farm, neighboring farmers gather on our expanded patio. The same space where my family once held court now hosts people who understand the value of what we've created. The conversation flows easily, filled with genuine interest rather than competition or judgment. Bill Henderson, whose family has farmed this county for 4 generations, raises his glass. To innovation that serves the land rather than exploiting it, he says. The others nod in agreement, their weathered faces reflecting shared values. Celeste appears at my elbow, holding an envelope. This came today, she says quietly, handing me a letter with a Tampa, Florida postmark. Inside, Savannah's precise handwriting informs us that the family has relocated. Miles has taken an entry-level position with a regional investment firm. Their new house is modest but suitable. She ends with a stilted invitation to visit when convenient, the words revealing both pride and uncertainty. They never saw the value of what was right in front of them. Celeste observes, watching the sunset paint our experimental fields gold. Even when it was worth millions. Oh. I fold the letter. Thinking of our plans to distribute drought-resistant seed to struggling small farms next season. The true harvest of our work isn't measured in dollars but in sustainability, in communities strengthened rather than exploited. Vaughn joins us, his arm slipping around my waist. This is only the beginning, he whispers against my temple. 1 seed at a time will change the world. Looking across our land, the same acres my family dismissed as worthless dirt, I recognize a truth that took 32 years to learn. The real harvest isn't what we grow in the soil, but what we cultivate in ourselves when we finally stop seeking approval from those incapable of giving it.